Very own Waterpik Professional Designer Series for just $99.99. You'll also receive 11 flossing tips. And when you order now, you get the Cordless Advanced for free for cordless water flossing anytime, anywhere, even in the shower. You'll also receive free shipping, so order right now.
27%. Pollsters this summer asked Americans how concerned they were about reports that the Trump campaign had had contact with suspected Russian operatives. And pollsters got a sort of underwhelming number for the number of Americans who were very concerned about that. Only 27% of Americans said they were very concerned. So, again, that was this summer. Politically, maybe it's true. When Republicans said their constituents in particular didn't care about the Trump-Russia investigation all that much, maybe that was true. But you know what? A lot has happened since that CNN poll was taken in mid-July. Por ejemplo, the Trump campaign manager has been indicted on multiple felony counts and is wearing an ankle bracelet while he's out on $10 million bond. The Trump campaign manager's deputy is out on $5 million bond and also wearing an ankle bracelet. He's also been indicted on multiple felony counts. Also, a Trump foreign policy advisor pled guilty to lying to the FBI about his Russia contacts, which included them offering dirt on Hillary Clinton and thousands of stolen emails. So, I mean, all that stuff and more has happened since this poll last asked the American people whether or not this thing being investigated by Robert Mueller seems like a big deal. Only 27% were very concerned about that earlier this summer. Well, now we've had the indictments and all. Pollsters went back with the same question. The same question. How concerned are you about reports that people associated with Donald Trump's campaign had contact with suspected Russian operatives during last year's campaign? How concerned are you? Now remember, in July, very concerned was only 27%. As of last week, after those arrests and the indictments and the guilty plea, very concerned went from 27% to 44%. Also, 44% say Russia's attempt to interfere in our election is itself a major problem. On top of that, an additional 22% of Americans say it's not just a major problem, it's a full-on crisis. So ask Americans about Russian influence on the election, as described by U.S. intelligence. 66% of Americans, 2/3 of Americans, say it's either a major problem or a crisis. Now, in terms of the president himself, this poll also asked, do you think that Donald Trump knew during last year's campaign that anyone associated with his campaign had contact with suspected Russian operatives, or do you think he did not know this?
I spoke out about my experience
a clear
at
majority
Fox News with
says,
Roger Ailes.
Yeah, Trump
But that
knew.
was not my first experience.
59% of Americans say yes.
In 1988, I was a college
people
intern
associated
at
with
his
campaign were having contact with Russian operatives,
that a
despite the fact that the president denies knowing that. With all the other things going on in the Mueller investigation, the congressional investigations, the indictments, the guilty plea, all of the other elements of this scandal and this crime being pursued, politically, the Republican strategy for defending the Republican president in the midst of this biggest presidential scandal of all time, the Republican strategy has been to try to hurry up this stuff up to its conclusion. They're really rushing the congressional investigations now. They're trying to pressure the Mueller investigation to end as quickly as possible, right? They want things wrapped up on Capitol Hill. They're trying to either discredit or pressure or maybe defund Robert Mueller. They're calling the whole thing a witch hunt. It's a nothing burger. And by the way, nobody cares. Nobody cares. That's how they're trying to deal with it politically. But that is not how Americans feel. And with this kind of response from American voters, Republicans politically are not going to be able to win this just by saying this is no big deal and nobody cares. However you feel about this story, your fellow Americans care about it a great deal.
When I was a young reporter, I thought, well, being a reporter, you have no emotion, and that's not entirely correct.
You guys okay?
Do I shed a tear on stories? You bet I do.
10 years of my life gone.
Because I'm no different than the viewer.
To see the cell phones light up.
People calling to check on their loved ones. Calls that weren't going to get answered.
When I'm interviewing someone who's been through a horrible calamity, I'm feeling it too.
There's more good people than bad people, you know, right?
This is not an easy job for a lot of reasons, but one of them is that I'm a human being.
Can you fit in there?
I got this.
So that's the new man, huh?
Yep.
Well, it's getting a little close to my ride.
Wow, that's how you make a first impression. They're gonna love you.
That's Ford, America's best-selling brand. Hurry in for 0% financing for 72 months across a full lineup of Ford cars, trucks, and SUVs. And just announced, get 0% APR for 72 months plus $1,000 cash back. Take advantage of these exclusive holiday offers during the Ford year-end sales event.
When you have a cold, stuff happens. Shut down cold symptoms fast with maximum strength Alka-Seltzer Plus liquid gels.
My dad's, grandma's, Aunt Stacy's.
What are the reasons you care for your heart? Cunol CoQ10 with 3 times better absorption as the #1 cardiologist recommended form of CoQ10 to support heart health. Cunol, the better CoQ10.
Life happens. That's why feeling safe is priceless. With ADT, you can feel safe with an ADT starter kit professionally installed for only $49. Call today and install an ADT starter kit that includes security panel, keypad, key fob, entry and motion sensors, and for a limited time, get a camera included and installed at no additional cost. That's a $449 value, installed for just $49.
I do quite a bit of holiday shopping, and I use Ebates for all of it.
I earn cash back just by doing the shopping I was going to do anyway.
I've used that cash back to buy more gifts, or actually a gift for myself.
Join today and get a $10 bonus at ebates.com.
There is a murderer among us. Let us see who.
Rated PG-13 tomorrow.
Our last story tonight is not so much a story as it is a public service announcement. Public service announcement. Do you know where your teeth are right this minute? Not like do you know where they are? Because it's 2 days since Election Day, and I think this is going to be an essential part of winding up our election coverage for 2017, because I'm really not comfortable leaving this part of our election coverage unsettled. Quote, if you voted in Portland, Maine, and you're looking for your teeth, read this. The Portland Press-Herald reporting tonight that false teeth were discovered by an election clerk left behind in a voting booth on Tuesday. Quote, the choppers are now... Sorry. Quote, the choppers are now in a plastic bag in the city clerk's office at City Hall, waiting to be reunited with the owner of the appliance. First of all, doesn't that make you want to be a city clerk? Second of all, public service announcement. If you cast your vote and your dentures in Portland, Maine on Tuesday night, don't despair. The clerk has them at City Hall. That does it for us tonight. Now it's time for the last word with Lawrence O'Donnell. Good evening, Lawrence.
Good evening, Rachel. And it sounds like a small-town America story, but Portland, Maine is not that small a town.
If it was that small a town, we'd all know who lost their teeth.
That's exactly right. That's exactly. And, you know, I'm spending half my day now looking for stuff, looking for my keys, looking for my phone, always looking for my phone. Not yet looking for the teeth, but I know that day is coming, Rachel.
You know what? Your staff loves you, which I know. I know they love you. And if you ever tried to get on TV without finding your teeth first, they would tell you.
And guess who finds my phone all the time? The Last Word staff. And it's always right in front of me or in one of my pockets. So they always know where to look.
I know the feeling. We're equally old. Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you, Rachel. Well, today, Donald Trump and Steve Bannon's candidate for a special election of a Senate seat in Alabama has brought this country to a point we have never been before, a place we've never been before. It has brought the United States Senate to a place where the Senate has never been before. And so Republicans in the United States Senate and a silent Donald Trump and a silent Steve Bannon are wondering tonight if they can continue to support a candidate accused of pedophilia.
More trouble for the GOP.
I believe in the Second Amendment.
The former judge accused of inappropriate sexual conduct with a 14-year-old girl almost 40 years ago.
It's very, very disturbing what I've read about.
If there is any shred of truth to these stories, he ought to step aside. And now,
if that's true, I don't believe there'd be any place for him in the U.S. Senate.
If these allegations are true, Roy Moore should step aside.
All these women are on the record in this story. It is true.
Moore has doubled down on this idea that this is fake news, that it's defamatory.
The people that want to believe it will believe it. The people that don't want to believe it aren't going to believe it.
Officials say it's too late to take his name off the ballot for next month's special election.
How does the Republican Party respond to this?
Look, the moral test is 366 days in the rearview mirror.
When you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab him by the...
I think it's more likely that he will be sworn into the U.S. Senate than not.
The people of Alabama, they like me very much, but they like Roy.
But Republicans are going to have a real price to pay when it comes to other races around the country as a result of it.
Here is a typical moment in Roy Moore's Republican campaign for Senate in Alabama in a special election that will take place on December 12th.
All across our land, we have child abuse, we have sodomy, we have murder, we have rape, we have all kinds of immoral things happening because we have forgotten God.
Because we have forgotten God. According to Roy Moore's logic expressed right there, Roy Moore forgot God. In 1979, Roy Moore was a 32-year-old assistant district attorney in Alabama. A team of Washington Post reporters who went to Alabama to report on the Senate race there have come back with a story from 1979 that exploded in our politics today as if it happened today. 3 women did this extraordinary reporting for the Washington Post: Stephanie McCrummen, Beth Reinhard, and Alice Critters. And there is no better way to convey the essence of this extraordinary story that they have written than to read the words that they wrote in their reporting that they delivered today. Lee Korfman says she was 14 years old when an older man approached her outside a courtroom in Etowah County, Alabama. She was sitting on a wooden bench with her mother. They both recall when the man introduced himself as Roy Moore. It was early 1979, and Moore, now the Republican nominee in Alabama for a U.S. Senate seat, was a 32-year-old assistant district attorney. He struck up a conversation, Korfman and her mother say, and offered to watch the girl while her mother went inside for a child custody hearing. He said, "Oh, you don't want her to go in there and hear all that. I'll stay out here with her," says Korfman's mother, Nancy Wells, 71. "I thought, how nice for him to want to take care of my little girl." Alone with Korfman, Moore chatted with her and asked for her phone number, she says. Days later, she says, he picked her up around the corner from her house in Gadsden, drove her about 30 minutes to his home in the woods, told her how pretty she was, and kissed her. On a second visit, she says, he took off her shirt and pants and removed his clothes. He touched her over her bra and underpants, she says, and guided her hand to touch him over his underwear. "I wanted it over with. I wanted out," she remembers thinking. "Please, just get this over with. Whatever this is, just get this over." Korfman says she asked Moore to take her home, and he did. There is much more in the Washington Post reporting of this story, much more detail about what Roy Moore did to Lee Korfman, and much more detail about his dating teenage girls when he was an assistant district attorney. 2 other women told the Washington Post about assistant district attorney Roy Moore, asking them out on dates when they were 17 and 19 years old. They both say that when they were much older, only then did they realize how inappropriate that was. Roy Moore gave alcohol to Lee Korfman when she was 14 years old. And he gave the other girls alcohol who were under the legal drinking age at the time. The Washington Post reports this about the relevant law in Alabama. The law then and now also includes a section on enticing a younger a child younger than 16 to enter a home with the purpose of proposing sexual intercourse or fondling of sexual and genital parts, that is a felony punishable by up to 10 years in prison. And so Roy Moore, who has lived his entire public life as the holiest man in American politics, stands accused tonight of a felony punishable by up to 10 years in prison. And he is still a candidate to serve time in the United States Senate. In one of the more tragic passages in this very painful article in the Washington Post today, Lee Korfman explained why she felt that she had done something wrong with Roy Moore when she was 14 and why she kept it secret for years. I felt responsible, she says. I felt like I had done something bad, and it kind of set the course for me doing other things that were bad. She says that her teenage life became increasingly reckless with drinking, drugs, boyfriends, and a suicide attempt when she was 16. We have not heard one word from Roy Moore, not a single word. Roy Moore has not come out and recited the Bible passage that justifies his behavior in these stories. He has not come out and spoken his denial of these charges. He has spent the day in fear of what would happen if he stepped up to a microphone and opened his mouth about this. And so he has not spoken a single word, not one word. He has handled it in the most cowardly way possible for a politician accused of such things. He issued a written statement and echoed the leader of the Republican Party, who is himself a self-confessed sexual assaulter, Donald Trump. He used President Trump's favorite phrase when Roy Moore said today in a written statement, "This garbage is the very definition of fake news." Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell was the man who arranged for Roy Moore to come to Washington, to come to the Senate and sit with all of his potential future Republican Senate colleagues and discuss what they can all do to help Roy Moore win his Senate seat. Today, Senator McConnell said this.
If these allegations are true, Roy Moore should step aside for all the obvious reasons. A very disturbing allegation.